Right, welcome. This is part of my journey, episode 12, and it is Monday, the 11th of October, 2021. And part of my journey is where I speak to a couple of other, generally DJs from the 45s community, but we've had a comedian on there. We've had Rich Wilson, and we've also had Dan Flanagan from Dad LaSalle. And we're going to be talking about mental health, anxiety, depression, and then later on in the show, we'll be talking about 45s that lift the spirits, and then the last section where we're talking about cool sweets and chocolates. So I'm going to introduce my two guests today. I've first got Lee, Phunky Flavas. How you doing, Lee?
Very good, thank you. Hello, everybody.
Good to see you. We've got Scotty Boy locked in already. So hi, Scotty Boy up in Scotland.
Evening, Scotty.
He became a granddad recently, so congratulations.
He did, yeah.
Scotty. And then I think we've got Matt. He's definitely there somewhere. We've got Double P in as well. So hey, Double P. Yo. And Simon Cannon, who's been on the show last time with Dan Flanagan. And hello again from Scotty Boy. Right, and my second guest is Matt Love. How you doing, Matt?
Evening, very good. Thank you very much. Nice to see you guys.
Yeah, good to see you too. And we've also got Jedi Wayne in as well. He's saying evening. Hello there.
With you.
Right, and Cut Class as well. Thanks guys for joining us so early in the show, and that's great to hear. Right, let's talk a little bit about your musical backgrounds and your DJ careers first, and then we'll sort of move into some of the more important areas, talking about mental health, etc. Evening to Lady Melzer as well. Right, Lee, if we start with you then. So tell us a little bit about your background as a DJ, music collector, record collector, things like that.
Okay, oh dear, I think usual thing, a lot of the guys and girls on this are kind of wedded to that hip hop thing in the 80s, and that's kind of where it started for me, I guess. I was always into music, but more kind of rock and stuff from my dad, and then kind of hip hop just happened, and that sort of blew everything out of the water, really. But I guess breaking, all that kind of stuff, and then around 88, 89. A mate of mine who I went to school with, I'd left school a couple of years by then, a mate of mine I went to school with was DJing in a pub. And I was like, what are you doing here? And he said, I do this every other Sunday. But actually, I can't do all the time. And I said, well, I'll do it. And I think at that point I had about 3 12-inches. Right. And I was like, I'll do it, I'll come. And basically he said, well, just do half an hour and we'll see how that kind of goes. He had one of those old Citronic, I think it was a Trent 2 or something like that.
All in one sort of.
Yeah. All, amp is all there, and you basically rock up with that. And so I did a few evenings doing that, and I can remember first record ever played, Heaven by the Chimes. So that dates it. That was kind of brand new out,
right?
Draw funky tune, and stuck with that. And then kind of through that, he put me out there on the wedding circuit and said, I'm going to double book myself for weddings, so that now you can do weddings and kind of all that business. Did that for a year or two, and then got in with a kind of crew of guys at a club, and club DJ for probably 4 or 5 years. And then from that, went into doing my own thing, which is where Funky Flavas comes from. That was the night that I promoted from around 93, 94 till for about 10 years. Acid jazz, hip hop, funk, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. It kind of went through various guises. We sort of discoed it up a bit and called it Car Wash. We went a bit more hip hop and called it The Payback, but it was always kind of under the moniker of sort of Funky Flavas. And then alongside that also ran an indie night as well called Spiral, which was really successful. And probably said goodbye to those at about 32 years old. 2002, 2003 career came along, and it kind of felt like maybe I need to get in the working week and that sort of thing, and focus on that. And that was really it for me. Until I discovered this thing called the 45 Kings, and absolutely like a sleeping giant, it awoke that interest again. And I just, can't wait, the wife would say, can't wait to get out there and buy records and play records, and you forget that part of yourself, and it's just been an absolute joy. But yeah, that was.
I was going to say, we've got the creator of 45 Kings in the house, Mr. Lob, and also Fat Wax
Big up,
as well.
Rob.
So DJ Lob says, Mr. Lob, what was your first DJ name? Was it Phunky Flavas, or did you have something else?
No, it was Lee. I've never really gone by a name, and I think when I became involved with the 45 Kings, I just wanted to kind of keep that Phunky Flavas name going a bit. Do you know what I mean? And there's people, I guess, that I bump into from time to time and on Facebook that remind me of the night. And I moved away from where I lived. I'm from kind of Great Yarmouth area, and I moved away from that area for a while. And when I went back home to live for a few years, I bumped into somebody, and she said, "You have to do Phunky Flavas again." This was about 2016, and I sort of put all the effort into putting it on. It didn't really go down that well in terms of people coming, but the people that used to come, kind of some of those came, and it was just kind of, I thought, I want to keep that name alive a bit. So that's really where that name kind of comes from. But I've always just been plain old Lee. Other than that, I wish I'd been, DJ Fresh Mess or something. I don't know, but yeah, nothing quite as groovy as that, I'm afraid.
Oh, Phunky Flavas is a good name. It's got some funky spelling in there.
Yeah. Of its time, I think back in the early 90s, the PH and the flavors was a thing, and now I kind of think it's really kind of intellectually sort of ironic or something. So that's the kind of aim of it. Really, is it's perhaps a little bit more ironic and cheesy rather than anything.
It's retro. It's going back to the 90s. I think the 90s is all the rage at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'll come to Matt in a minute, but we've got a lot of people in tonight. Thank you everyone for joining us. We've got Air Adam, Armand Melkis, Mr. Lob, obviously Jedi Wayne, Cold Crush Radio, Double P, Paul Sitter, and Lady Mel's, and loads of people I probably missed already, but I've said a lot.
Big up Rostov on Dam, Paul Sitter.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Right, Matt, your turn. So tell us your background as a DJ, collector, radio show, whatever you've done.
Like Lee and that, sort of when I was 11, Electro 1 come out. I got into electro. I was shit at dancing, awful at graffiti.
Join the club.
Yeah, I wasn't going to spend all my money on batteries. So I just used to sit, me and my friend would just make like everyone else, really shit little mixes and that. And then I had a friend a couple of years older. We used to go around his house, we'd have a little smoke and he'd play records. But he never let us touch the decks. Big up, Simon there. Yeah, he never sort of let us decks. But then a friend of mine, Ted, he was moving to Australia. So we'd have been 17 then. So that was 33 years ago. And we decided for a leaving do, we used to go to this over 21s bar. We'd been drinking there since we were like 15. And you could basically, this bar was like decadent. You could just blaze in there. People would be doing bongs on the bar. Sold hash chocolate in there. So then we were 17. That was the first time I'd ever used decks, was playing in this bar. And you didn't get paid, but you was behind the bar. You could drink what you want. And the first record I played in there was Rebel Without Pause. And we drank elephant beer all night. And after then, I don't know if you know elephant beer, that's a heavy beer.
No, I'm thinking of, what's the Indian beer? I'm thinking of the Indian beer, which has got the elephant logo, but I can't.
No, elephant beer is made by Carlsberg. It was sort of like Special Brew Light.
Special Brew Light?
It was only like imagine if so it was vile. But then just from then we started, it was omnipresent. If anyone had a party, Lee was saying I had a pair of BSR decks in a wooden console in my bedroom. And because my mum would rather we all sat indoors smoking, everyone would come around my house and just sit in my bed. My bedroom was like 6 foot by 5 foot. And there'd be like 10 people in there all blazing, playing records. My mum screaming up the stairs. And we just did that. And then like hardcore come along. And I think it changed my life. It just made it more fun DJing. That it was just great fun. And I've never looked back. I think personally, I've grown up at the optimum time. Because sort of when raving come along, I was 19. A couple of years later, drum and bass and everything. And I've sort of kept my hand in. Also, I was even, when was it? Late 90s, used to play a bit of garage. And I just love DJing. be nice if I could actually. A lot of times I played to a hell of a lot of good empty venues. I played in the end. So it was someone's.
That is a good venue.
Yeah, it was a work do. I think there was 22 people, and they all stood in the side room.
Yeah, because there's two tunnels, isn't it? Basically.
Yeah.
So they stood in the other tunnel.
They stood in the bar because there was a buffet there.
Right.
Yeah, and then I'm trying to think. Played at some amazing places. You played these. There was a club home on Leicester Square.
Yeah,
somehow managed to play in there on a Saturday night. But that was a mad place. So I remember that. There was like 7 floors or something.
Yeah,
we were
massive,
playing on the 5th floor, and the toilets were on the ground floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, just always.
Time for bed.
I think you're sending me to bed there. So no, I've always to DJ for 33 years. Sort of like everyone else, I went digital for a while, and I think the worst thing with digital, I was playing Saturday night at 333 Club in Shoreditch. I don't know if you knew that. It was on
I have been there. Yeah,
massive club. Saturday night, probably 1 o'clock in the morning, my laptop crashed. Main room.
Ah.
Have you ever had a club full of people boo you?
Not yet.
It's great. And he just stands in there going, I'm trying to reboot. And I remember that afterwards, they just turned around and the bloke went, we're just going to shut the room now.
That is the curse of potentially digital dealing. I mean,
yeah.
I guess apart from all the needles going that you've got with you, we should be able to carry on playing with records on something, unless you turn up and there's no decks.
Well, that happened to me when I lived in London for years, and 10 years ago I moved out of Chelmsford in Essex, and I was sort of emailing people, and I got a gig in a local bar, and I said to them, I'm going to play Serato, that's all good, and I turned up, and that was it. I was like, have you got any decks? I was like, no. Have you got a mixer? No. So that was it. So I had to do that of playing it, internal, doing that thing of just on your keyboard, looking at the right number. And that was sort of I think that was the end of turntables anywhere. Because everywhere now, you have to take your own equipment. I don't know anywhere that actually has decks.
Say goodbye. Say hi, Zizi.
Good night. Good night, Zizi 45.
Right. Yeah.
All the kids are going to bed now.
That's it.
Well, I say going to bed. Mine are in their room. I don't know what they're doing.
I know, you'll normally see. Right, go on then, because we've got to talk about some slightly more adult things. Right, go on, off to bed.
When are we talking about the sweets?
Not till a lot later.
No!
I know, it's all about the sweets, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right, okay, bye. Right.
So that was it, yeah. Then I think I'd always played 45s. I always liked to sort of start my set before. I'd always sort of start with 7s. Because there was always interesting things. And back then, like, you'd buy from Fat City and everything would come out. It was like £4. Or you go to HMV and all like the latest sort of indie type stuff was 99p. So I'd always bought 45s. But then this must have been about, there's an internet radio station I used to play on called Dark FM years ago. And I had a friend who lived in Holland. And we decided we was going to do like just a bar night there. And I just thought, I'm just going to buy 7s. I really can't be bothered to get on the plane and take it. And back then, that was when, this must have been about 2005, when everything was cheap. You know, when you go on Discogs, you buy a copy of Raw for 99p.
Yeah. And
things like that. Which, funny enough, once all the prices went up, I've now sold them all. It was got silly. And I was thinking, I've got this record. It cost me £1. Someone wants to pay so much. Yeah. But so I played 7s, and I've always played 7s because it was boredom for me. I'd get bored listening to a long track. I think like you saw Chris when I played at Rope-a-Dope.
Down in Bristol, yeah.
Yeah, I think I played my whole set in about 20 minutes because they were closing early,
Well, that's the thing. I mean, even now, for 45 is 3-4 minutes, and even so, I get a bit bored. I get bored about 2 minutes in, and I'm like, okay, put something else on, or I just let it.
It's still quite niche, I think. It's still an element of that to it, which is lovely. Yeah. I played. They do an open turntable thing in Leeds, kind of all over the place, and I went up there and played the other night. Gave me a chance to road test my Dusty Donuts bag. And
show us your bag in a minute. Actually, go on.
I'll show you now because it's just.
There's going to be a lot of jealous people.
I'm in the kitchen. You guys are surrounded by your records, and I've got washing machines and stuff. So I thought I need to have something that's a bit DJ kind of compatible. So there it is, absolute blinding bit of kit.
Yeah, it does look nice.
And
Double P's
Yeah,
got one on it.
Yeah, you'll get it soon, mate. And but I went there, and all these guys are playing, you know, album cuts and 12s and whatever. You're cracking DJs, all of them. But I was the only one that had 45s, and you could kind of see that there's this element of, oh, yeah, what's he about? You know, what's this all about? And like you say, Matt, you drop them for 2 minutes, and you're into the next, and you're into the next, and it just keeps you on your toes. I love that. You know, I couldn't. This guy was running a really long mix, and he held it so lovely. But you know, for me, I want to move on. You know, I want to play the next thing. So 45s fit fantastically for that.
It's also a bit, you know, I mean, I play quite eclectic sets, and I think, you know, quite a lot of us play lots of different genres, which is good. You know, not dissing any digital DJ at all, but you know, a lot of the digital DJs tend to play hip hop, or they tend to play R&B, or they tend to play drum and bass, or they tend to play, you know, you get a few that are sort of all over the place. But I think with 45s, is in one set you could have like 5, 6, 7, 8 different genres.
Well, so I was chatting to Mills about it last night, and the fact is, the weird thing about it is, it's a scene based on a format, not a genre. You know what I mean? Which is very, when you think about it, it's very odd. Because to be honest, I miss playing hip hop 12s, because if 7s come with instrumentals and acapellas, because that's what I used to love about it. I love an instrumental and acapella, and if they do come on 7s, it's the same ones all the time, innit? Big Daddy Kane, something else, and I used to like that. You'd buy a 12, you know what I mean? You would get instrumental, vocal version, a cappella. And that is one thing that I think has lost a bit of creativity of that, because no one's doing that. But it is odd that it's a scene based on a format more than a genre or anything.
And yeah, I mean, I've said that before. It's our whole scene, the 45 scene, 45 Kings, you know, Twitch DJs, you know, so it's just a musical format, you know, it is. And that's why there's so many different varied people taking part in it. And I think that's very true. We've got some good comments. Mr. Lobb says people have told him that they've never seen black CDs like his. Double P, always a sense of urgency when playing 45s. That's what I like. I guess, unless you've got your set planned, you've always only got 3 minutes to work out what you're going to play. And
that's the DJ nightmare, though. That's the recurring nightmare. You know, where you're like, oh my God, it's finishing, and you can't get the next one.
It's worse with coloured vinyl, especially white coloured vinyl. It's very difficult to see where the end is. No. And unless you know the track really well, you can find stuff. We got Mr. 45's in the house. Sam Tweaks.
Big up, Sam Tweaks.
Big up, Sam. Yeah, kisses to Matt Love. Yeah, Welsh kisses to Matt Love.
Always kisses from Sam.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Great. Thanks for letting us all know a little bit more. Lee, you okay?
Yeah, good, mate. Yeah, thank you.
All right. So you obviously told me, unfortunately, your dad passed away last week, and I said to you, you know, are you sure you want to carry on with the show? And you said you wanted to do so because you wanted to talk, and you know, you thought this would be a great supportive community, and you know, already everyone in the chat is, you know, here, and it's great. So I'm sorry, you know, about your dad's loss. Do you want to talk about it and explain, you know, how it sort of came about and how that sort of affected you?
Sure. So my dad's 73 years old. Thanks, Mills. He called me back at Christmas, just after Christmas, and said he'd been struggling to swallow. So he told the doctor, sent a, you know, it was all kind of online then. So did a 111 thing. GP rang him, sent him for a scan for an endoscopy. And he said, I don't think it'll be anything. And I said, well, you were lifting trees out of the garden, because he's a big lump, Dad. You're lifting trees out of the garden a couple of weeks ago. I'm sure you've probably given yourself a hernia. You know, don't worry about it. It'll be all right. And he wasn't, to be fair. He's very sort of stoic, my dad. He was kind of like, well, you know, it'll be nothing. You know, it'll be fine. And then he rang back and said, he'd had an endoscopy, and the cancer nurse was there. And they think that's what it could be. And, you know, as things kind of progressed, a couple more appointments, etc. Effectively, it was, we can't do any operating on it because it's not in the right place. It's up against your aorta. So if we were to operate, the risk is we could puncture that, and we're not going to be able to. But we can do, you know, we can do kind of, thanks for all the messages, by the way, guys. I'm not ignoring those. That's lovely to read. You know, we can do some chemo, and we can kind of really kind of hit it, and you know, felt quite sort of positive March, April. Sorry, I'm leaning on my table and it's making the camera wobble. So yeah, felt quite positive March, April, and then he'd had this chemotherapy and he wasn't really getting any better. And so I went to an appointment with him, and the doctor said, actually the tumor has got bigger. We've really kind of attacked it with some quite urgent chemotherapy, and it's not made a jot of difference to it. So we can try another bit. So we tried another bit, and that kind of continued for about a month or two. And it just made my dad feel awful. He just lost kind of all of himself, really. He was, asleep all day, and, really kind of struggling, lived on his own. My mum died about 20 years ago, so lives on his own. And it kind of got to the point where he was saying, I don't want this anymore. I don't want this chemotherapy anymore. It's going to, it's making me feel just really ill. So he took a decision to kind of leave it, really, I think, on the basis that the sense was he might have got 6 months or a year, was kind of what they were saying to him. I think I kind of had that in my head. But I was at that appointment, that kind of final appointment with him back in July, maybe. And it was end of July, because I brought him back here straight after. And you kind of have this in your mind that you've got a bit of time, and you can not like bucket list stuff, nothing massively dramatic like that, but just time to spend time together. And and he lives 4 hours from me, so I was thinking, I'll get down to see him, I'll stay for a week, we'll do some stuff, and sadly he never really got back any energy or any kind of sort of wellness in that sense. The assumption was the chemotherapy was going to leave his system, and over time he would start to sort of improve a little bit, but that never really materialized, and he slowly went more and more downhill, found it harder and harder to eat, was I won't get too graphic, but was kind of more and more unwell with it, really. Until about 2.5 weeks ago, when my brother rang and said, because my brother lives down there, and said, Dad's gone to hospital. He's been vomiting, and they're going to admit him. And again, your thoughts are, well, that's not very good, but perhaps, they said it's an infection. And actually what had transpired is the tumor had grown so big that it had started to impact on his lungs. It's esophageal cancer, and it had gone through the esophagus and had started to mean that his lung capacity was reduced, and actually fluid was entering that kind of cavity. So that was what was giving him the infection. And just after that, it was a week really of I went down there and lived at his house for a bit and saw him every day, and it was just a week of gradually watching him, unfortunately, deteriorate to the end in front of my eyes. It was just, he went from being this. He's not tall. I'm reasonably tall, but my dad's quite short. But he's like that. He went from kind of being this really huge ex-rugby prop to just, unfortunately, just really sort of deteriorating and losing all that weight and all of that kind of energy, really, where he couldn't talk, couldn't get comfortable, couldn't feel at rest in any point, really. And he never got out of hospital. The hope was he was going to get to a nursing home, but that never kind of happened. And sadly, he just never really left, and that was it. They called us on Tuesday morning last week when I was staying at his house. The phone went at 6 a.m, and your dad's breathing's difficult. And myself and my wife were up there in 15 minutes, and he'd already gone, sadly. But what I would say is, thanks, Scotty. What I would say is, seeing him, as I saw him after, they did a really kind of make him okay, and I saw him after, when it was time to kind of go in, and it was after what I'd seen the night before, and how I used to nurse for a living. I've never, and working residential care and all of that, I've never seen anyone as ill as my dad was on Monday night last week. Literally, I've never seen anyone as ill as that. It was absolutely soul destroying to see him like that. And to see him at rest after was a degree, there was certainly relief there. I was kind of, obviously see him go, but it was certainly relief to think that was over for him. So it's and you know, I'm not going to lie. I mean, it's obviously very tough, but I'm in this kind of, you're in that weird place for a while. I went through the same with my mum. She lived in Spain when she died. She died of a brain tumor, and you're in that kind of weird place where it's not very real. And I'm sure over the coming weeks, it you know, as it was with my mum, you know, it kind of a month or two later, the phone don't ring, or you can't just ring. And you know, I would ring my dad kind of every twice or so every week. You know, how you doing? Kind of chat. And I think over the coming weeks, that's when it will kind of kick in. But it's it's, you know, I'm sad for him because 73 is no age from my point of view. Prison officer,
it's not anymore, is it?
Deserved his time, you know.
Yeah, I mean, especially people are living older and older now, and you know, it's like you say, it's not an age. I mean, how's it been in terms of, you know, impacting on your wife and your daughter as well? You know.
So my wife Marie, she's been really upset. We've been together about 15 years. You know, we've lived away a lot of that. She's from Doncaster, so that's why I'm up here. Obviously, I'm from back east, and so, you know, we haven't seen my dad kind of regularly. You know, but she's a very honest kind of person, Marie. She's really kind of down to earth and you know, typical Yorkshire person. You know, kind of, you know, really warm and giving. And I think, you know, they had that sort of depth in their relationship. You know, and it's absolutely. She was, you know, in bits last week, and has been really for the last few months. She hadn't seen him for a while. I brought him up here after the final appointment with the consultant back in July, and I just sort of said to him, right, you're coming home with me. There's no way I'm letting you go home on your own. Scott, my brother, works offshore in Angola, so he was away, and I just said, right, you're coming home with me. We're going. You know, let's get the dog, massive blooming retriever. Get the dog. Let's get some bits together. You're coming up and staying with us. And he walked in the house, and when we had a quiet moment, Marie just burst into tears because she hadn't seen him for a few months, and he'd just gone downhill so much. For Olive, my daughter, she's 7 and didn't see a huge amount of her granddad. So thankfully, she's not really been too affected by it. She kind of gets that he was ill, and she's sad that he was ill. But I think the whole passing bit, I don't think is really kind of, you know, sort of resonated with her in the same sort of way. So that I'm glad. I wouldn't want her to kind of be sad, and I'm happy that, you know, she's able to kind of just keep going about her day really, and hopefully hasn't been too affected. She won't come to the funeral. You know, we've got the funeral on Friday, and she'll be with Granny and Grandad, and you know, probably rightly so. So so it's, you know, you just like anything in life, innit? There's that phrase about just keeping putting one foot in front of the other, and that's what you got to do, innit? Yeah.
I was going to say, because I mean, how, you know, obviously you've got the funeral coming up, but, you know, how have you been dealing with it day to day? Have you been, you know, trying to keep yourself distracted, or, you know, are you having to organise the funeral and organise all of that to keep yourself going? Because obviously you've still got to work, I assume.
Yeah. So, I mean, I suppose if I could pick out, I mean, it's not about picking out positives in COVID, but one of the things, this bit about working from home that we've been able to enjoy, us that are lucky enough to be able to enjoy that. I'm very mindful that lots of people have had to go into factories and shops and hospitals and all that stuff and deliver the job in the way they always have. But I'm lucky in my profession that I'm able to kind of work from home, and that's enabled me to be in, like I was in meetings today with work, but then also kind of dip out really for the rest of the day when I needed to sort some other stuff, and my boss is okay with that. So that's been, you know, really helpful because it's enabled me to keep busy when I've needed to be busy. Because I don't want to, I could just spend a week. I mean, so my day today was my meeting with all the other senior managers this morning, and then this afternoon I wrote his eulogy, and to just be able to have the time to do that, but not have it all day and it consume my day, if you know what I mean, and that really kind of drive me to sort of ultimate sadness and distraction has been helpful. And I think you're right. I think it is that bit about whatever works for people. For me, I like to be busy, and I like to be around people. Like today's, you know, this evening, this morning for you, Rob, is a really lovely thing to be able to do, because otherwise you're just talking like it's just me and Marie talking about it, and that brings its own kind of challenges, you know. So yeah, it's you know, just getting through the week. And I suppose when my mum died, my dad kind of took care of everything because obviously he was still around and kind of, you know, everything transferred to him and all that sort of stuff. I had no idea how much there is to do, you know, when you lose a parent who's possibly your last parent, and therefore there's, you know, the property and the, you know, the bills, and, you know, like my brother's had to go, no idea about his life really. So, you know, we've had to find out who his broadband's with. I'm still trying to track them down. Do you know what I mean? We've had to, you know, who the mobile phone is with, who the, you know, all those sorts of things, and ringing around and what have you. You know, it's, that feels never ending, and the funeral and all the stuff that kind of goes on with that. You know, just feels never ending. But you know, it will get done, and you know, we'll give him, you know, my focus is the best possible send off I can give him on Friday. That's my focus. That's what it's all about for me. You know, and you know, seeing family and being with close family is going to mean the world. And you know, it's a sad thing that as you get older, I'm 51, and as you get older, you kind of, it stops being weddings and it starts being funerals, doesn't it? You know, but we as a family will, you know, give him the best possible kind of goodbye, farewell that we can, and that's really what, you know, what I'll take from that. I think, you know, I'm not going to say I'm looking forward to it, but at the same time, it'll be cathartic in that sort of sense. Hopefully, it'll be helpful to kind of be able to kind of, you know, do what we need to do for him, and the best we can for him, you know, which is what I owe him really. So
Are you organising any music for
it? We've done that. He's we're having 3 songs, song to come into. So again, the DJ comes through, doesn't it? You know, the kind of, you can't come in too high, you can't peak. So my brother was like, "Oh, we'll come into something up tempo," and I was like, "Nah, mate, you can't be walking in behind my dad with, you know, I don't know, whatever playing. You know, you've got to kind of be suitably appropriate for the occasion." So big ELO fan. So that was kind of his thing. I was hunting out one of the 45s tonight. I couldn't find it, so we haven't got that on the list. There's a spoiler, but but big ELO fan. So he's kind of reflection song where they play it in the service is going to be a song by ELO called "The Lights Go Down." We're going to do "Days" by the Kinks when we come in, which is, you know, that's what one of the things my dad gave. I never realised. I always thought my love of music was from my mum, because she was a bit of a swinger in this sort of 60s sense. But it's from my dad. I see that now. You know, Kinks, Stones, Hendrix, Eric Burden and War, you know, OMD and kind of new wave stuff. That's all from my dad, and ELO obviously. And I realise that now. So we've got Kinks, ELO, and then the song at the end is Travelling Wilburys. I can't remember the name of it now, but you know, that was Jeff Lynne and Tom Petty and all those guys, and you know, he loved them. So really, you know, hopefully something that he would have agreed with. We didn't talk about it. I tried to, and he never really wanted to go there. So I'm doing my best for him and having my best guess.
Yeah. Thank you, Lee. I mean, I know it can't have been easy, and there's a lot of support. A lot of support in the chat, and thank you everyone for being here. And that's not an easy thing to talk about. And you know, I hope, you know, you said you wanted to talk about it because it would help. And I hope
people go through this stuff, don't they? You know, I saw in the comments people have similar experiences, and my heart goes out to them. You know, but I think I've had a fair bit of loss in my life, and you know, some of it's a bit sort of too painful to talk about really, but I've had a fair bit of loss. And the thing that I always say is, sometimes people think that they say, "Oh, words are never enough. I can't say anything. I wish I could do something." And actually, words are everything for me. You know, the things that people say to you, you know, "I'm just sorry for your loss," or I'm here for you if you need me," or you know, maybe they send some flowers or something. Those things mean the world. You know, it doesn't have to be grand gestures. It doesn't have to be anything major, but just someone showing you that they acknowledge that you've had a loss,
Yeah.
And I would say the same to anyone in this group. You know, I'm sorry for your losses as well. And you know, that, you know, we've all got to look after each other. So yeah, so more than, you know, content to kind of, you know, speak to people about that and get their feedback as well. So thanks for the opportunity, and thanks you guys for the things you're saying to us.
Yeah, thank you everyone. I you know, obviously, you know, you said you wanted to go ahead with it, and you know, I messaged people and said, look, if you can, you know, I know people are busy, but if you can tune in and, you know, show some support, and everyone's come out, you know, thank you to everyone who's come along and watched it, and you know, big respect everyone, big respect. Yeah, Simon, a very good comment. You know, learned something tonight already. I need to spend more time with my folks. It's
Definitely.
It's a strange one, isn't it? Because, you know, we all get older. We've all got our own families, or some of us have got our own families, and you end up, you know, working, looking after your own family, your wife, your husband, your kids, you know, your partner, whoever. And you know, if your parents are still there, it's trying to spend time. You know, I mean, I know my parents only live a couple of doors down, but you know, although I see them briefly most days, you know, that's a big time I don't get the opportunity to do as often. But yeah, it's so important to do. And yeah, Simon, you know, so important to keep the memories alive.
Sorry
I love
to hear that, Simon.
Stories of my mum lost to cancer 11 years ago. It's so, you know, so important.
Yeah, and you say you're going to do it, you know, and not you know, people. We say we're going to do it, and like you say, you know, work,
life gets in the way.
Just get in the way, and you know, myself and my dad are probably very similar, and we rubbed each other up the wrong way quite a lot of the time. Certainly, as I was growing up, as I think a lot of teenagers do, don't they? All that sort of stuff kind of happens, and but I wouldn't say we enjoyed, you know, the most warm relationship, you know, in the sense of, you know, he wasn't a big hugger, I'm not a big hugger, you know, all that sort of stuff. But as adults, I think there was, you know, we were able to kind of learn from each other and kind of really enjoy each other's company in many ways. And certainly one of the things that I take from this last few months, because of his type of cancer, he couldn't eat very well. My dad, and eating was one of the things he enjoyed, you know, cooking and all that sort of stuff. And I was able to, one day he said to me, because there's things you can have and things you can't have, you know, and one day he said to me, look, I feel like I want a KFC. Other chicken restaurants are available. I feel like I want a KFC. And I said, right, well, let's go then. Let's jump in a car, let's go. And he was like, well, we can't do that. You know, what will we do? Where we go? And I said, we'll just go to the drive-through and you can have a look. And if you want something, you want something. If you don't, you don't. We'll leave it. Don't worry. No pressure. And it was like, just to see him enjoy it, you know, he really kind of enjoyed this thing. And we went and sat up by the beach in Lowestoft and kind of, he had that to eat. And, you know, to have just those small moments, and it is just a small thing, but it was really important. And, you know, I was able to take him out for a breakfast one day and kind of have a bit of time with him afterwards before it got too much for him and he had to go home. And, you know, so it's not about the quantity. I mean, you know, if you can see your parents more often, great. But I'll take that. I'll hold on to that. I'll take that all day long. You know, I didn't live near him. We didn't see enough of each other. But those moments, you know, may never have happened if it wasn't in some ways for this circumstance. And so, you know, I'm really grateful that we had that time and that opportunity. You know, and he enjoyed it. And so, yeah, you know, like you say, seeing people's important and prioritizing, but it doesn't have to be grand things. It could just be, let's just have a wander together, you know, or whatever it is, you know. So yeah.
And things like, you know, during the pandemic, while we still going, obviously when we could only go for a walk, you know, just going for a walk around the block or whatever, you know, with your folks or your parent. Thanks, Lee. We'll come back to maybe a couple of issues in a bit.
Thank you. Sorry, Matt.
No.
I think that's the longest I've ever been quiet in my life. Yeah.
It's, right, Matt. Yeah. Well, your turn. I mean, obviously, you know what I do before the show is obviously I you know, speak to my guests a little bit and get an idea of what, you know, what they'd like to talk. And again, you talked about loss as well, and having an impact on anxiety and depression and things like that. So, where would you like to start, or where would you like?
I just wanted to first sort of touch on the fact of music at funeral. I mean, a year ago, a really good friend of mine died. And for some, he was a big New Order fan. And it's funny, so they put Blue Monday on, but then we realised as it had started on, whoever had downloaded it had downloaded the full-length version.
Right.
So everyone was sitting there thinking, right, here comes a 6-minute intro. And it got to that awkward stage that we could almost imagine Darren laughing at us. Instead of someone putting a short one, so we all had to sit there in there for the full, 17-minute version. And as good a tune as it is, the first 9 minutes of drum machines, it was, it really made sound light-hearted. He was it was only 53 when he died. And just for that was quite a nice thing. It was almost like he was laughing because you are sitting there dum, 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 thinking it's going to do that now about 1,000 times before it kicks in. Yeah, but going back to obviously with your loss, I mean, your dad, was it cancer of the esophagus?
Yeah.
That's what my mum died 14 years ago this month for that.
Oh, I'm sorry, mate.
That's all right. I went with her because she'd had before a thing called Barrett's gullet.
Yeah.
Before that. Oh, is that what?
I think my dad had that, but I don't think he knew. So
that's what she had, that, and they basically removed her gullet and stretched her stomach up and that, and she'd had that, and for some reason or not, so this was 14 years, this is 16 years ago, she missed her checkup. So then her checkup, she missed it by a year and went back the next year, and I went with her to the appointment. We went to the appointment. It was a routine ding down the throat, and it was like, "Oh, Mrs. Lane, you've got cancer." And that. It's still just to hear them words, because my mum was my best mate. I couldn't afford to move out, so I spent most of my time living with her. And that destroyed me. And obviously her, and then she went into chemo, and she was in, where was it, in Barts, right? Sorry, not Barts, the Royal London at Whitechapel. She was in there for ages. And I mean, at one stage, she actually heard on one night that she died, and they brought her back. And she had chemo and everything. And then she come out and she'd lost weight. She was the best she'd ever been at anything. And I always remember, it was 14 years ago, 2 weeks' time. So I always remember, I was at my friend's house, Brad, watching football and getting a phone call from my sister saying my mum had rushed in. And it was just like anyone knows with cancer, it just come back. And within a couple of weeks, she went from being totally healthy to being in a hospice. And it was just, I mean, I lived with her when she was done. So I went through the whole thing of nursing her back through, her getting back to normal, then it coming along. I don't know how to see her, but as we know, fuck cancer. And it is the biggest cunt in the world. Excuse my language, but it is just the most revolting thing, I think. There's nothing worse. It just destroys everything. And as I know, you know that happening early, and it's hard, but the thing is, you've just got to remember, luckily I had the good times because my mum she knew all my friends by their first names. I mean, years ago, I went travelling in Israel, and she used to have my friends still used to go around my house and have a little blaze with her because they couldn't do it at home. So I'd go and see my mum. When I DJ'd, my mum used to come out. And she got into, and it's funny, she sort of listened to music. She'd always listen to, I grew up with awful music. She always listened to Dusty Springfield, David Essex. But then bizarrely, in the mid-90s, she was R&B. Oh, Erykah Badu, Jill Scott, stuff like that. That's all she'd be playing. And it was like her favourite song, which is absolutely cripple. I can't hear. Dance with My Father, the Luther Vandross song. It's got the most awful drums in it. It's so, but the lyrics are, because she loved it because her dad had passed years ago, and it was just, everyone else saying there, shout out to Del Condor. Big up Del.
Yeah.
Just got to say that. But yeah, as we know, it's horrible. It doesn't discriminate against anyone. You know what I mean? It doesn't. It's not anything. And to be honest, and that going along with cancer, that was the thing. I was brought up, and I'm sort of diverse in a bit, but I was brought up, I was Jewish. And I always sort of believed in God and so forth. And there's a great interview with Stephen Fry talking to a bishop. And they're talking about whether God exists and that. And he just turns around to Stephen Fry and says, if there's a God, why do children get bone cancer?
Yeah. And
that was the sort of thing that just made me think for then. It's like, how can there be anything if that? You know what I mean? It's just, it's horrible. It's horrible. And I mean, the thing with my mum, when my mum passed, I wasn't a drinker. I wasn't a smoker. I just ate. I ate. And I mean, there's pictures of me. There's some knocking around Facebook, and I ballooned up to about 18 and a half, 19 stone. And I used to eat, because KFC, I used to do like a 14-piece bargain bucket to myself. And through that, I ended up like going to the doctors, and they was like, look, you've got to stop this, you're going to have a stroke. And I was like, late 30s. So that was sort of depression. It would have been easy if I'd have drunk or something. But the mad thing is, like 4 months after my mum died, one of my good friends died as well. And it was weird. He was at the funeral, but he died. It was awful. He was one of them lovely bloke, John. Rest in peace, John. And one of them people who'd try anything, do anything. And he was living with someone. They were just sitting in, like, doing a bit of recreational heroin, as you do. And he just passed. And that's bizarre. That's one of them things. Just weird. Oh, it's funny because I'm a Spurs fan. He was a Gooner. And there was always that banter. And I still get that thing now. That when the Arsenal being shit, I sort of want to text him. And in fact, my friend Darren, who passed last year, it was the same thing. That thing that's missing, you think, oh, yeah, Arsenal have been really shit today. And it's like, oh, no, I can't. And it's just that feeling of, you know what I mean? There's something, you've got the memories, but it's always what would happen. You know what I mean? Sorry, I'm just going to have a beer. Just toast them both. But, yeah, it's a hard thing. I'd always suffered depression for years anyway. In my youth, I was a massive pothead. In the late 90s, I moved to Holland and used to smoke too much skunk. And I'd come home from Holland and I don't think I left the house for like 3 months. I couldn't physically, my panic attacks and anxiety, I'd sort of walk up halfway up the road and have to go home. But then my depression went out. The weird thing, I started then forcing myself to go out. And I used to hate going on tubes. So I'd force myself to go on tubes and I'd go to Reckless Records in Islington.
Yeah.
Purely because it's got that. I had a fear of escalators at the time, my anxiety. And I used to go to the Angel because it had that really big escalator.
Yeah.
So I managed to conquer that. But the problem was then, I was buying so many records and chuck them on the credit card. I got myself into stupid debt. And that caused even more depression. Because at the time, I was just...
Yeah.
Back then, all my friends at the time, this is like mid-90s, yeah, I think. All my friends had partners and they'd all do things. It's like, what am I going to do? I'll buy records. And it just escalated. And it was like, say, it's another thing. And it's anxiety. I mean, I still suffer with it now. When was it? Last week, where'd I gone? I went to TK Maxx to look for a coat. And just for some reason, I felt like, this is the bizarre thing, I was upstairs and I felt like I was going to fall over in the homeware department. I wasn't in the homeware department. I was in sort of the clothing department, but I felt like I needed to go over there and fall over. And it's just, I don't understand anxiety, how it works, but it was just sort of like, it was drawing me. So in the end, I just had to go outside and sit in the car. And it used to be worse. It just comes back and it's like, at the moment, I'm blessed. You know what I mean? I've got lovely kids, a lovely girlfriend. My life's all good, but still, it's always their depression. You know what I mean? It's just sneaking, just let it go and give you a little jab in the balls. Yeah. So, you can only look forward. It's good to look back, but I always fight. It's always there, you know what I mean? It's always lurking, just sort of looking at you. I know that's not going to cheer you up, Lee, but sort of... this is great that you can talk now. I mean, I talked to after a dear friend of mine, Neil. He once, when my mum died, he come and lived with me for a couple of weeks. And it was so nice just to where I'd had the house of her, just having him there, just hanging out and having fun. But yeah, it's hard times. But
you got to take what you can, haven't you? I've spoken to my brother more the last fortnight than I think we have in probably 3 or 4 years. Yeah. You know, he's away 6 months of the year. You know, sort of 10 weeks at a time. Yeah. You know, he comes back. He's always busy. You know, I work 9 to 5. He's kind of, you know, got the days off, but I'm at work. And you know, as much as the subject matter has been difficult, and you know, it's been, yeah, you know, we've definitely reconnected, definitely, and that's you know, so like you say, you reconnect hopefully with people. You had someone come and stay with you, and you know, it makes you realise what's important, and you know, I don't want to, in a sense, I'll have to work on making sure that even though he's away. Because he used to email my dad, I think, while he was in Angola, he'd email my dad and say, you know, bit of a tough, time on the rig at the minute or whatever it might be, and we kind of say, "Oh, it's all right, mate." Well, I think that's probably going to be my job now. You know, Marie was saying to me the other week, I think, you know, well, last week, you know, I think you're going to be the person that Scott gets in touch with, and I've got to welcome that. And you know, even though we've not had that bond in a sense for some years, I think, you know, I will do. And so you've got to, you've definitely got to get what you can. Just while I got the mic for a second, because I thought, you know, I'm talking about my old man and I'm talking about my mum. So, and Matt, feel free to do the same, mate. So sorry, but I want to put a picture. I want to show people a picture of them. Because you talk about them, and it's like, you know, they're people. So there's a picture of me and my dad, and that's my dad. Bit of a unit, as you can see. I am sitting behind him. I'm not that small.
Got his shoulders.
I'm not. I'm further away, is what I would say. I'm not like sitting on his shoulders.
Where's that taken? That looks like a castle or a church. Or
that's
something
that's in a place called Lorca in Spain. He used to live out there. So so that's me and him. And this is much younger because obviously my mum passed when I was much younger. But this is me and my mum. There we are. And she had breast cancer, and that progressed. They thought they'd caught it. That progressed, and then while she was in Spain, effectively enjoying her retirement, age 54, she was she died of, it went to her brain, secondaries, whatever, and went to her brain, and that sadly killed her. And she was 54 years old. So So anyway, but just big ups to both those guys. And just want to show people the picture.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's very important. And thank you for that. And you're very right. You know, at the end of the day, you know, we've got to remember them how they were, you know, and it's all those sort of memories and looking at those. And I'm sure you'll be going through lots of photos, you know, I don't know if you're getting loads of photos together for your funeral, but and Scott said, you know, I think it's important for a lot of us. You know, the biggest thing is family, and that keeps us safe and happy. You know, whatever else is going on, you know, family is important, and like Cut Class says, you know, life's too short.
Too right.
And I guess, you know, if we're trying to pick up little positives here, I guess the fact that now you can hold a funeral, and I think it's unlimited, hasn't it? You can have as many people as you want at the moment, isn't it? Under the current,
I've had nothing to suggest there's any restrictions. So and it seems to have gone quite smoothly.
I just say that because, you know, there's a lot of people who sadly died during the COVID pandemic, and one of those people was Joey Dees, who some people might know in the chat, who's head of Village Live, and I knew him. You know, I'd seen him a few times with DJ together, and you know, I saw him like the week before he died, and then obviously he had his funeral, and he couldn't, and having to watch that live streamed was, you know, a very strange experience. I mean, it was good to be able to be there, but it was very odd seeing a funeral parlor with like maybe 10 people, and then obviously everyone sort of watching it on there. So you know, and trying to say goodbye in that sense must be very difficult. And a couple of weeks ago, I think just after Bristol, I was asked to DJ a wake. This lady had died a year ago during the pandemic. They couldn't have the wake then because you weren't allowed to party, so they did it a year to the day when she died. And again, that was good doing that, because again, people felt that they could, you know, celebrate, you know, her life and that. So, you know, grief and death is a very difficult time, and you know, like you say, is trying to hang on to as many positives as possible. If you did that, and a couple of people knew Joey, obviously Simon and Cut Class, Matt, coming back to you. Obviously, you've had depression and anxiety for a while. I mean, you know, and it still gets you. I mean, we've talked before on the show about, you know, therapy and treatments and things like that. Is that something you've gone down the route of? Have you?
No, I've never
meds or anything like that.
No, my mum was on antidepressants all her life, right. So I'm very much of. I mean, she came off them. That was one thing when she got cancer. She came off it, but I've never, like I did when my dad passed when I was 14. He died. So bizarrely, as it goes, in April, I'm now actually older than my dad was. So I don't know if I knew it. In April, I just had my dad. Let me get a picture of me, rocked a moustache. So for a little time in April, I rocked a moustache, and that's my dad. Bizarrely, it's Arnold Lane. You know the song by, who is it? Not ELO, it's Thingamajig. Who did the song Arnold Lane? It's not ELO, it's someone of that ilk. XTC. I did a song bizarrely of his name in, completely digressing there, but and That was a weird one. So even then, we went to counselling, and I've never done good with counselling. I think I walked out straight away. It just seemed too condescending for me. Maybe I should have in theory, but I sort of just try to get on with it. And I don't think on the long run, that hasn't done me any favours. So I mean, as long as I can remember, I've had sort of losses in my life. I mean, the month before my sister died, not sister died, God, not that. My sister was born, my nan died, and then 1980, my mum's mum died. And then 6 months later, my granddad actually just died of a broken heart.
Yeah.
So I've just seen I can see where the depression's come from. I've just sort of had loss. And now my family is basically my sister and her kids and husband. I've got an aunt, my mum's sister that I never see, and I've got my kids. So I've never been from like a big family. So I've dealt with most of the shit by myself. And like now living by myself, I find if I haven't got the kids stuff, when I'm working, I don't have the kids. So when I am, or the other way around, you know what I mean? I have the kids and that. And then it's quite hard then dealing with that because it's just, but it's one of them things, you can't, I think medication might help me, but I know it'd still be there. It's like I have arthritis. I have psoriatic arthritis, and through that, I inject myself every day with medication, once a week with a pen. And it doesn't take away the pain, but it masks it slightly. And I just feel like I pump myself with that already. And I just, so maybe I could have had some form of help, could have done, but I don't know. It's just, I'm just sort of babbling on it now, but it's one of them.
I think meds is a tricky one. I haven't obviously been on meds for antidepressant, but I've spoken to a lot of people who have, and one of my good friends is on it, and he says it just tends to sort of numb things a little bit, so things that will perhaps get to him and cause him, to be upset or worried or whatever, just don't. And I think it's also very difficult to come off them. That's the other problem. And I think going on them and getting the right meds and Fat Wax has put in, I don't know if this is the right song, Pink Floyd, Arnold Lane.
Yeah, that's what he said. Yeah, that's what it is. I knew it was someone proper. Yeah. Cheers, Fat Wax. Yeah.
And Double P, who's been on the show and obviously inspired the show. He's the first person who talked to me openly about his mental health. He's saying he's having CBT therapy, and he's told us a few people about his numbers, and I believe it's cognitive behavior therapy. I think it's what it means. And he's had it, and he told me about the numbers, and the depression seems to be going down, and some of the anxiety is still having an impact, but he's getting help, and he's accepting that, and that seems to be helping, which is good. And talking, and I know you say you haven't done meds, but you're talking about it now. Is it something that you've talked about to people before? I mean, you say obviously counselling didn't work, but have you always had people to talk to?
Well, whether I have anyone knows, I talk a lot. I mean, I'm very open. I just probably too open at times, share too much, but I've always spoken about it, and you know what I mean? I'm very much an open book, and I'll speak about it. And I still, still thinking about my folks, I'll still cry now about it. I believe it just, you know what I mean? It's just one of them things that, I'm just reading what Simon had put up there.
Sorry. Yeah. He's saying he believes in medication is more of a stigma that needs to be. If you have a headache, you take paracetamol. Yeah.
I agree with that.
Different things work for different people, don't they? I think.
Exactly.
And until you try something, I guess you don't know if it's going to work. And with antidepressants, from what I can gather, some people it won't work the first meds, and then they do the second lot, and then they maybe get onto the third.
They do,
and eventually they find. So it's whatever works for each person.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing I find now is because it's so up and that's obviously you could be and all the time, because it's so up and down with me. It's sort of I'm almost used to the ride. You know what I mean? That I'll know that I'm terrible. I mean, for just my emotions have always been shocking. I could sit here now and watch an episode of Hollyoaks. I'd never watched it in years. Someone would die and I'd cry. I've always been like that, which is bizarre. You know what I mean? If I watched a sad thing on TikTok, I'd cry. I've always been like, it's funny. My son's like it. It's weird. Anything. Just look at it and think, how? But yeah, it is. We're terrible. We watched, there was a Disney film. I don't know if you've seen it. There's a short before and there's two volcanoes. I don't know if you've seen it on with kids. And there's one of them and they're singing to each other and it's in Hawaii and they're in love. And they never quite met each other. And me and my son was at the cinema. And this was like 3 years ago. So we'd have been like 6. And we were just sitting there in tears. It was so beautiful, this little thing. I mean, it's a Disney short. If I find it, I'll ping it up on Facebook. And it's so lovely. It's just things like that.
What's it about, mate? I love those Disney shorts.
Two volcanoes. It's only like a little
Oh, it's lava. Yeah.
Is it the one? Yeah. So
he sings that song, doesn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. Like one song, yeah. Things like that. Lovely emotion. I'm just
gets me too, mate. That's great. That's great.
It is, yeah.
Whereas Mr. Lob will cry if someone requests ABBA.
That's all the Muriel's wedding though down there, isn't it?
Yeah. Fat Wax showing you some love there. Matt loves a great house guest along with both his kids.
Thank you very much.
Great.
Yeah, so I mean that's it. Lots of death, lots of depression. But apart from, well, at the moment I'm top notch. I'm having a great time. And at the moment, like every month going out DJing, hanging out with Melza. Big shout out Lady Melza, top lady.
Yeah.
So we're doing that. Like finally last week got to meet you, Criztoz, and DJ.
Yeah, no, that was
really
great.
Helps me doing that, getting out, doing stuff once a month, just meeting people. Instead of, I got over that thing of doing little shitty gigs. Now I like it's nice to do like one nice gig a month for 6 weeks, but it's actually to people that didn't matter. Like Bristol, there wasn't many people there, but the people who were enjoyed it, didn't they?
It was just quality, nice. Not quantity. That's the thing,
I'd rather play to 5 people who enjoyed it than. I'd say 50 people because I never play anywhere big anymore. But ignore you. So
yeah, and that's very true. You know, and it's I guess that also comes a little bit with age, doesn't it? You know, because we're that bit older. You know, we're not. You know, I think we're past the days where we're going to suddenly be superstars. You know, we're not sort of 18 or 19 thinking we're going to be massive stars. So it's more about playing to people who actually appreciate and enjoy what you're playing, rather than sort of trying to fill, obviously it'd be great to fill a 200 people club all dancing to music, but it's unlikely, isn't it? The sort of stuff we play, I would imagine. But Scotty Boy's got an offer for you. There you go. Come to Edinburgh and play for me, Matt. That will happen very soon. Well, soon. It's definitely next year. I think, me and Scotty Boy have been talking about various possibilities, and hopefully something like that will happen. And then Jedi Bristol was great therapy to many that went. Very true. Very true.
Jedi Wine then. Did I meet you, Jedi Wine? Was you in Bristol? Did I meet with did you meet Jedi Wine there? Did I meet you and not know who you were, Jedi Wine?
I don't think I met him. I mean, I was only really there on the Friday. Double P went to Swindon.
That was quality. Lydia,
and then he came down to see us in Bristol as well. That was very true. Right, let's talk about music now. So, I ask, this is like Mark Lancaster started. I think it was a very first question he put in the chat when we first did the show with Double P and John Musto. He said, what 45s lift your spirits? And obviously at that time we weren't prepared for it. We just sort of talked about it. But ever since we've done it on the show. So, Lee, do you want to start with what 3 you've got for us tonight?
I will. Yeah. Just to say, very mindful of the north-south divide here. Hopefully, I'm hoping myself and Marky can do some kind of, northern thing as well, because it all seems to be Bristol, Swindon, the south coast. So that's lovely. Chelmsford represented with Danny and with Matt there. So, don't forget about us up here. We'll have to try and sort something out.
Well, I think the plan is, the sort of vague general plan I've got in my head is that, once we get to sort of hopefully spring next year, and hopefully we've got through this winter and we'll, all things are doing well. And then we can just say, right, okay, so for example, March, let's go up to Doncaster, or April, let's go to Edinburgh, May, let's go down to Wales, and I can't see why we can't do that. And obviously, Double P's got a gig coming up, and Danny Bounce played with, Andy Smith and Tommy T, and, down in Chelmsford. And obviously, Matt, I know you've got a big celebration coming up soon as well. But I think that's hopefully the way it will go next year.
I think you're right. And I think, the great thing about this is, like you say, none of us are kind of looking for huge pay packets or anything like that. I will play for a sausage roll. Do you know what I mean? So, I think any kind of, sort of warm beverage or whatever, I'll do. No ABBA. No, I haven't got any. But so, you know, it's great to be able to lean on each other. And obviously we've talked about some stuff, haven't we, Criztoz, in terms of kind of, you know, how we go further. And I think this is
I think
really
you'll
great
have we just need a bit of time and things to hopefully be back to normal, that when we can plan something and know that it's not going to be cancelled at the last minute or something else is going to happen, and then get people there. But
so records. So this was hard. I've got a pile of 10 on my desk, and I'm going to pick. I think I've got it down to 3.
If you want to go through all 10, that's fine.
No, mate, no, I won't bore people. But look, the first one is this one. So first thing to say is Malachi is the man, and I absolutely love what Dynamite Cuts do. I love the way he gets it, you know, gets the music, repackages and puts it out. When I ran Funky Flavas the night, which did incidentally get upwards of 350, 400 people come, was a really successful night. It's just this little tiny seaside town, but people absolutely, you know, really kind of loved it. And we had people like Lee Gracie came from Speedometer when he was a band called Persuaders, played the bongos for us. You know, we had various kind of acid jazz DJs come. But anyway, big night. This was the theme tune. This was the Funky Flavas kind of theme tune. You know, that would kick off the night, and I think kicked off my first set for the 45 Kings. So that's just a huge tune. And if I had to pick, it's Can't Walk in the Park. As much as I love the other thing, you know, I out of that double pack, Can't Walk in the Park. So yeah, absolutely love that.
And it's amazing. It's amazing packaging, and it's just consistently good quality music. You know, every release.
Yeah, the press is good.
Amazing.
And I'm happy to give the guy my money. I mean, has anyone watched that cooking thing that he does? I don't know if you guys are Facebook friends with Mal. So on the YouTube, so if you search Malachi Trout, I think it's I can't remember what he calls it now, but basically he's cooking whilst he's telling you about his new releases, and it'll be things like whatever's coming out on Dynamite Cuts, and it's also the stuff that's coming out on what's the label with Flying Fish and all that lot on it, Skyline Recordings, and you know, he's making, last week he was making, I don't know, pastry parcels or something, and he's drunk, his wife is drunk, the kids are drunk. It's the funniest and the best television, I think. It's as good as Squid Game. It's brilliant. So I would recommend that. So yeah, happy to.
We were talking just before we came on air, weren't we, about Dusty Donuts and how you're saying that some of them are quite drunk often, like Naughty and
that one with I can't remember what it was.
I think Mark Hype and J Star when they were on the sort of rum and cokes. And Mark was pretty wasted. And J Star seemed to be able to hold his booze, but
there was one where
drunk Twitch streaming. Maybe we should do that next time.
Definitely. We could have alcohol corner, couldn't you, or something like that? And that would, you know.
I know Tommy T was.
Well, I don't drink, but it would be exciting to watch you guys. So anyway, that's number one. So I'm really kind of agonised about this, but I love a double A side. Do you know what I mean? I love anything. And
good value for money.
And this is cheap as chips, and it's just brilliant. So this is. The Nightlighters, Tangaboom, Gonk, and KG. Now, if anyone doesn't know those, Tangaboom, Gonk is kind of, you know, sort of slow to mid-paced, kind of big horn thing. Really nice tune, lovely introduction. Mixes really well into sort of various bits and bobs. And then KG, 123 BPM is a breakers classic, is bang on b-boy stuff. So if you haven't got that, I haven't looked on Cogs or anywhere else to see what it is, but that you're probably going to get that for a $5, maybe a $10 at the worst. And I would recommend that to anybody. You know, that's just brilliant. And there's several of those that are kind of kicking around, but that for me is just a brilliant double A-sider, cheap as chips, and should be in everyone's box all the time. And then just reading Marty's comment, and then the last one is just slightly sort of less, I guess, of the funk bit, but is this is probably one of my all-time favorite records.
Okay, yeah.
I love Velvet Underground, and that was I don't know, some kind of reissue or whatever that I managed to pick up a few months ago. Getting back into the 45 thing. Obviously, I've got it on the album, but it was really lovely to kind of find that. I think it's about 20 quid. I have a sort of 20 quid rule. I try not to go over that. And I've got to really, really want the record for 20 quid. I try and sort of see if I can get bits for about £5. So yeah, probably with the shipping at least, I'd have thought, Rob. But yeah, again, Sweet Jane and Rock and Roll. Both brilliant tracks. Obviously, Rock and Roll much more up tempo. Sweet Jane's kind of, up and down. If anyone doesn't know it, check it out. But I'm sure you all do. I really, really love that. And again, the old boy would have appreciated that as well. So I wanted to kind of chuck that in. I could go on. There are hundreds, but yeah, just 3 that hopefully kind of float the boats for people.
They are good. And Mr. Lob saying he's got the Cowboy Junkies version of that on 45.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay.
Sounds dodgy. I don't know. I'm aware of the cow. Weren't they kind of bit Billy Ray Cyrus kind of thing? Weren't they that sort of deal? I don't know.
You'll have to play it on your next stream, Rob.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
That's great. Thanks for those 3.
Thank you.
And yeah, Simon saying good choice. Let's go to Matt. So Matt, what have you got for us? Actually, before we do that, we were talking about this down in Bristol, weren't we? Lee's sort of rule about 20 quid. You were saying that you try and keep about £5, maximum of about 10 these days if you're buying something, certainly second hand.
I don't like buying out of shops. I just like boot sales. I like digging. I don't like the fact of going out and always there. But saying that, I've sat here today as it goes, watching a TV show with Shazamming tracks and buying them off Discogs. So, but it's still cheapies. I don't like to spend a lot on records. So I always feel the karma of boot sale gods, it always twat up to you. Like I've had some amazing hits digging for things. But the thing is, problem is, if I get a record and I think it's expensive, I end up selling it.
Yeah.
But I had that. I used to sell a lot of my good records. But unfortunately now I give them all to Melza. Yeah, which is quite funny because when I met Melza, I've actually met because I used to sell her a lot of records.
Yeah.
And obviously now, her being my girlfriend, I can't really charge her for the records anymore, so I've lost that on that. Yeah.
She's laughing.
So, yeah, you're laughing. Yeah, you like that. As we chatted before she chatted the other day, like when we went digging in Bristol.
Yeah.
Just putting out records. You need that one, you need that one, you need that one. But then
I started doing it as well.
Yeah.
And then I was like, have you got that? And then I was like, hold on, both of us sitting there digging for her while she was standing in the record shop. Yeah,
that's why she's a lady, isn't she? She's sitting there and we're just doing that, yeah.
We're on the floor, yeah. What you got there, Matt?
First son. That Buckhorn Plastic Jack. Made in 2 minutes. That tune, I loved it when it came out. And I did the Friday night, we did that rave Friday night a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And that was good. And I loved that. And that tune there, I always remember it was 91, where I lived in Chinkford at the time, and there was this bunch of guys. And I used to basically, it was literally squat parties. It wasn't. I used to just break into houses and have these most amazing parties. And they'd be like massive houses, like waist deep in smoke. There was one of them, the fire brigade turned up at 5 in the morning, thinking the place was on fire. And it wasn't. And these parties were amazing. I always remember going to one, Chigwell, it was like on a road, it was like a road where all Spurs footballers lived back then. So the houses back then were like £2 million, and that was 91. So I did think they'd be like that. And I always remember everyone just partaking, dropping a couple of cheekies. And just as everyone was coming up, the DJ dropped Made in 2 minutes and the police raided. And it was that complete euphoria of all of like, yeah. And that night, anyone who knows from Chinkford, I mean, there must have been 200 people in the car park of the Wheelwrights pub. Everyone in the queue for the petrol station, it was all the same. It was 20 Benson, pack of king-size Vistas and a Ribena, please. And whenever I hear that tune, it just makes me think of that. And then bizarrely, about 5 years ago, I sell vintage clothes as well. And I was doing a market and I was chatting to this girl. And it turned out this girl, I went to school with her mum, which made me feel really old. Then later on, we was chatting of music, and it turned out that her husband had actually made in 2 minutes. He'd done the music, and in fact, Wax's friend, I believe, was the MC on it.
Okay.
That
It's a
stuff.
small world.
Small world, yeah. And
Yeah.
that tune is amazing. So that is my first one. I had a second one, which I've now swapped out. That would have been Sweet Harmony, because that's the one tune by Liquid.
Oh, yeah.
This isn't my second one, but I love
Classic.
you. That's the one that I don't really dance, but put that on and I'll try and do a
Liquid.
real bad running man. But that's me. But my second one, I've been bigging it up today on Facebook. Time Bomb, Public Enemy. I don't think there's a better hip hop tune. Just the lyrics.
Flip, isn't it? It's the flip of that as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Public Enemy number one.
Both sizes. Public Enemy number one.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just everything about it's awesome. For some reason, people always talk about favourite MCs, and it's always Big Daddy Kane, KRS-One, Nas. He was good for like 3 songs. Big Daddy Kane, good for about 5 songs. Fuck KRS-One anyway. He loves nonsense. But Chuck D, he's sublime. You know what I mean? He doesn't contradict himself. His voice is great. He did the Prophets of Rage. I was lucky enough to see them do. It was the 25th anniversary of Fear of a Black Planet, and I saw him do that in entirety, and it was amazing. You know what I mean? He's captivating. His voice he hasn't lost his voice. He's just, and everything about that tune is just perfect. Just the first line. And then
I was at their first ever gig in the UK, and he absolutely Hammersmith Odeon back in '87, and when it was those guys, Eric B and Rakim and LL Cool J came as part of that tour.
Did you get
and
mugged?
Everyone was there to see them. No one was there to see Cool J, you know.
Did you get mugged?
Not at all, but I was absolutely bricking it. The whole
must have been one of the only people who actually went there, didn't, because there was just steamers, wasn't there? All the trains.
The whole thing was terrifying.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
But
I think
the sirens, the S1Ws. But you're right, what you say, Matt. What I remember is Chuck's voice.
Yeah.
You just I don't think I've ever heard such an authoritative voice.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He came out and you sat right up. You know, Cool J was messing around with beds and kind of all that stuff.
Yeah.
The sound, unfortunately, for Eric B and Rakim was awful, which was a shame because Rakim's a man, isn't he? But he just captivated you from the get go, and like you say, you can't take your eyes off him. It's like he's talking to you. It's like he's got a message for you, But a terrifying night. I got a 15 quid B&B on Shepherd's Bush Road and pushed a bed thing up against the door. It's kind of, I was like 16 years old. And I was like, oh my god, I just need to get out of here and get back to little old Loostuff. But it was they were fantastic. And so sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to say,
Chuck is the man. That was just such a good tune, isn't it? Everything better. And the last tune is obviously going to be Del Condor, Fuck Cancer. I mean, I like the B side. Also, Heavy X. It's not big shouts to that. It's not for me. But the A side, Fuck Cancer. I mean, on that tune there, Chrome with Blade, Chrome and Blade together. Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, with Chrome, I always feel he's got elements of Blade about him anyway. And I'm dare say, Mike, he must say that because I mean, big up, Mike, the funky driving instructor. Yeah, Blade, Phil Most everything specific on the cuts, Nap on the beats, and obviously Fuck Cancer, big up Del. But I'm not the biggest hip hop fan anymore. But when I heard this, everything about, I don't know if it's the meaning as well, but everything is perfect. It's a perfect. I think you're going to be hard pushed to find a better hip hop tune this year.
Yeah.
And it's a decent pressing. It's not warped.
Yeah.
That's the nice thing. It's not warped.
Yeah.
So as we know, I've had this chat. I'll go on that. Records at the moment seems there's so many. The quality about it. Anyone who bought that DJ Shadow Fruit Bowl, did anyone get one that wasn't warped? They were all...
Mine's a little bit. It's not as bad as the one I saw Fat Wax put up. The one Fat Wax put up was just like ridiculous, wasn't it? On the needle.
I know.
It's obviously probably, I don't know if it's a rush pressing or they just pressed so many. Big up Simon. Yeah,
Simon for that. That was big up. That's a big up Simon as well for Roper Dope, that was the last one. I've luckily been involved with 3 of them.
Yeah.
And what he does with Beeline on that, you know what I mean? Keeping, it's just that, well, it's the hard brick core, isn't it? Like, it's big. Germans absolutely love it. And what Si's doing, yeah. Big up Simon, big up Beeline and all that. That's killer stuff.
Yeah, no, and yeah, thanks for getting me involved as well. You know, I loved coming down, and it was great meeting everyone down there. Right, I think that's your 3, isn't it? Is it my turn, I think?
Yeah, it's your turn, yeah.
My turn, yeah.
So it is.
All right, so obviously I have to, well, I don't have to do it every time, but I do. So I sort of try and come up with stuff. I've got a couple of, one classic funk. I just love the song, Blow Your Head, Fred Wesley and the JBs. Absolutely love that. And just the intro. I'm not a scratch DJ or, you know, cut or anything, but I just love messing about with the sort of sound as it comes in. But every time that track comes in and then it kicks in, I just love it, and it just lifts me each and every time.
Makes me think of the Enemy as well. That for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
What goes on?
And so I cover a lot of my covers, but this one is it's going to fall out somewhere there. So that's Think About It by Barbara Tucker. And that's obviously a cover of the original, but again, it's just a really, really good cover, and it's close to the original, but different enough to make it worth sort of playing. And again, I play that quite a lot. And then last one, I know Butcher B likes this one, is Young MC, Bust a Move, which is classic. I mean, it's interesting that he never got bigger than he could have done, because he was a good MC, but I think maybe timing or whatever there just never got as big as he could have been, really.
Well, I think he made a lot of money doing a Sprite advert, though, didn't he? He did a Sprite advert, so he probably made enough money off that, didn't he? Retire.
He did, yeah. And it was in that film with George Clooney. There's a bit where they, I can't remember what it's about now. He's the guy trying to fly all the miles around the world and get his special ticket or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where they dance to that song, and watching George Clooney dance to that, it's just wrecked it for me. And Young MC performs it as well. They get him in live, like supposedly at this conference, you know, and so I can't, can't listen to it anymore. But No How's good.
No How good, and on the B side's good as well. Right, let's move on to No How for me. Let's move on to Confectionery Corner. So this is where I invite my guests to show or talk about some of their favourite chocolates or just unusual chocolates, sweets, crisps, whatever. Lee, have you got anything interesting for us?
I don't know how interesting, but I just kind of pick the ones I like. And I've got a few.
Tell us why you like them then.
I'll whiz through them. The sad, I don't get to really eat chocolate very much anymore. I've got some stuff going on, kind of, and I can't really eat too much of it. But what I would like, I'm going to start with this because this for me is probably me classic, and I'll just go with the classics. It's just a dairy milk.
That is a classic, yeah.
Do you know what? No one does it better for me. You can have all the American chocolate, Galaxy. Galaxy's just a little bit too kind of silky. I think that's just the best thing, and it's a bite of dairy milk and then a sip of tea with the dairy milk still in your mouth, so it kind of melts it. Is fantastic. So I would quite happily sit and polish all that off really, really, really happily. And it's, it never seems to, do you remember the adverts, glass and a half of full cream milk, they used to say, didn't they?
Yeah.
And I believe them. It's in there. There's a glass and a half of full cream milk in there, I guarantee you. So so that's my number one. I'm
sorry to interrupt. I'm going to just go through some of these messages. So Mr. Log came on and we had this debate about crunchies and violet crumble.
Yeah.
And so Lady Mel was saying let it go. And Fatwax had some choice words last time. He's saying, ram that crumble up your arse. It's horrible. Anyway,
so someone identified with my dairy milk and a cup of tea, didn't they? So I'm glad I'm not just talking.
Yeah, Simon.
Yeah, good for you, Simon. Yeah.
Nice cup of tea and a dairy milk. Boom.
That's it. Well, we are together on that, brother. So that, and then
what else you got?
I'm just going to chuck this in quickly. I don't know if someone said this one. I think they might have done, but
Doesn't matter. Oh, yes.
toffees.
I like
I never
toffees.
got 'em. Never understood them.
No, and they are a bit of an acquired, but
I like them.
I'm a social worker by trade, and when you are having a tough day, and there are plenty doing that job with kids, and someone brings these in at the end of the day, that is, thank you very much. You know, there's only 12. There's enough for one each, but it just tops your day off. So yeah,
one each. What are you talking about?
Well, there's only 12. So if there's 12 of you in a team, you get one each. You know, you got to it's egalitarian in my profession. You got to look after each other. But look, I bought this yesterday for the show. I've had one.
I know.
Well,
I mean, well, you can't just have one. They say.
Well, that's all I got, mate. And that's what I'm saying about toffees. They sneak up on you, and then they're all gone. You know, so
it is a weird name because obviously they're sort of toffee, but I don't know what the
fee bit is. No, no, it's a weird. I don't know how they came up with it really, but yeah, they're in there. They've got to be in there. And then the last one was on offer, and I was like, I'm getting that, and I'm getting it for the show. So it's Christmas, and you're 11, and it's 1981, and it ain't Christmas if you ain't got one of these. Without doubt.
Orange. Yeah.
And I can't do it. I want to do it. I'm going to try and do it. But
smash.
The guy on it, he gets it done. He does this, and he goes, and it all opens up.
Oh,
that's never happened. That's not a real thing. You know, I think he bangs it on the table. I'm not going to bang it on the table, be too loud. But that's never happened. If someone has genuinely done that, and it's all they've gone, and all the, you know.
Bless him. DJ Fade only got a real orange. Not a chocolate thing.
The co-op got them for £1, mate. Get yourself down there. Yeah. But yeah, this is great. And if Rob's not tried one, I'll get Marky to post this, or Marky perhaps post you one out. Because
Simon's right. It is about the middle bit. It's all the bits left over in the middle bit. If you can get that bit, then you're doing well.
That's the bonus round, isn't it, Simon? You kind of, you know, you've worked your way out around it, and then you've got what would be the pithy white bit in a real orange is just is again the fantastic bit of the.
I agree with Arman saying proper Terry's all the way. Now Terry's they're sort of segments, aren't they? With sort of
that's Terry's chocolate orange, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Terry's chocolate. Oh, sorry, I thought he was talking about there's something else.
So it's like that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
There you go. Whoa, they are. Oh, look at that split. So yeah.
You should do what Fat Wax has just said. Fat Wax has just said, lob it at the wall.
Lob it at the wall.
Come on, lob. You got a wall behind you, Lee. Turn around, chuck it at the wall. Let's see it smash.
That's a white wall, though. It's not going to be white for long.
Yeah,
no, that's
more than life's worth for that. I will try it. It probably would split open if I lobbed it at something really hard, wouldn't it? But yeah, not like the guy did on the advert. He kind of just goes.
Classic selections. I like all of those. That's good. Thank you. Matt, what have you got?
I've gone route one. When I was a kid, for some reason, my mum and dad always ate these. And for some reason, this used to be like
that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, it used to be like a posh chocolate. Now you get like 4 of them for £1, obviously in the pound shop. So about them, I just like them. It's simple. I don't know what the cream is. It's not cream. And what I like, there's no dairy in it. But unfortunately, I left this one on the dashboard today. So I've frozen it. But there's that one thing, you know when chocolate reforms and it's not
swirly.
Yeah, it is. It's gone. Let's have a look.
Yeah,
it's never quite as good, is it?
No, it's going to be all exposed.
And that does look very flat now.
It does. It's looking. Oh, yeah. It's got that sort of. Can't really see. It's sort of got that greyness about it. I'll still eat it.
Yeah, look at the back of it. Yeah.
Nice. But still, it's love it. And the other thing, I love a fizzy sweet, and I couldn't get any reverses. Parma violets. I love Parma violets. I love love hearts. Anything like I know Melza does it. Melza had some love hearts the other day, and it gives her a decent tummy.
Made with perfume, aren't they?
You love them.
Yeah, I've never been a huge fan of Parma violet. They do taste like you say perfume or.
They taste exactly what they are. They're perfume violet sweets, and that is. He's a taste of the 70s, I think. It's amazing they're still around. As yet, cold.
Yeah, I don't know who eats them.
Me. That's it. So I do eat Nana. Basically, I think, my confectionery is Nana style, really, isn't it? I did a glass jar with some travel sweets in now, all congealed together. That was it. I just went for 2.
I know what you mean about the fries, though, mate, because they were just the grown-ups, weren't they? No kids were buying fries back in the 70s and 80s, were they? It was like you get yourself, a Mars bar or something, and then
fudge.
Your mum's like, pick me up a chocolate cream from the corner shop. They had orange and mint as well, I think, didn't they?
Yeah. Oh, and they did They did a tropical flavour, which they've since re-released, and it just
Parma Violet tropical flavour.
No, sorry, I was the ice chocolate cream, and it just tastes like, I'd imagine if you put it's the flora, that stuff, the perfumes, stuff you used to clean your floor. It almost tastes like if you infused
Armands are saying they taste like girls' neck at the disco.
Parma Violets, definitely.
That's obviously some goth discos there, isn't it? The smell of that. Got patchouli oil and lavender,
And Simon saying, does anyone, and I mean anyone, like Turkish Delight?
Yeah, I love them. Yeah, I didn't think about it. Something I had to give. I had Star Bar, Turkish Delight were my backups. Yeah, definitely. Love a Turkish Delight.
So normal Turkish Delights, but not the one in the chocolate.
Fries, again.
Oh, that's it. No, I like them. A nice proper one. Like, obviously, one's from Turkey or bizarrely, if you go to Greece, they call them Greek Delight. And just that thing. I like that. Look at that. But it's just nice, but not with the chocolate. I never understood it with chocolate. You get the nice ones.
They're normally covered. If I go back to Cyprus or whatever, it's normally covered in like a ton of like icing sugar.
Yeah, you get it everywhere.
Very rarely.
Hanging out the scarf.
Pistachio, that sort of thing, aren't they?
Yeah. And walnut whip was another pension's favourite.
Can't do it. They're
quite fancy now. I know that Marks and Spencer's do different versions of those. Quite nice. Right, so I've got a couple of things. So I quite like finding sort of limited edition stuff that they don't do. And my daughter loves mint choc chip ice cream, and I thought I'd buy her some of these. So Dairy Milk mint chocolate buttons, which are quite nice. But this I hadn't seen until today, which is a Whisper Gold hazelnut edition. I don't know if there's hazelnut in the chocolate or hazelnut in the caramel, but I'm quite looking forward to trying that later. And then obviously it's coming up to Halloween, so there's tons of like bags of sweets, and obviously in here you've got your drumstick and your refreshers. But I think we used to have these as kids, the banana skids.
Oh, indeed, yes.
And
the wham balls. Has you got wham balls?
I think they're the same people who make toffee. They're fudgy.
Yeah. I can taste that now. I remember those.
Apparently, if I found a golden Love Hearts packet, I would have won a VIP tour of the Swizzle Factory, but I haven't got one, unfortunately. So.
Just putting it out there. If anyone wants to start a crowdfunder for me to go to the Swizzle Factory,
well, maybe we can email them and say, can we come and do a 45 session at your factory?
What?
And see if there's any takeover. Anyone got any links to the Swizzle Factory?
Oh, that'd be amazing. Double lollies as well. That's what I meant to buy today. You know the Swizzle double lollies, little ones you get. Them ones.
Simon saying, you can't ruin a Whisper. I don't know if it's going to be any good. I wasn't convinced with the gold one anyway, but we'll see. And what happened to Raisin Club? The club.
I think you can still get them. I'm sure you can get a Raisin Club.
And,
I'm pretty sure.
I know. Amon says that you only get mint and orange now.
Really?
Thank Prime. Come for the music, hopefully. Yeah. So that's great. Right. I'm just going to have a quick look and see who's live before we raid out. Okay, we can go. Sam popped his head in earlier. We'll go and see Mr. Tweaks, who's playing. He's playing with Boca 45 very soon. I think I just saw today. Which is great for him. Right, that's there. Right, so Raiders set. Thank you both of you for an amazing show. Thank you for being so open and honest about your lives, everything that's been going on. If anyone would like to talk about mental health issues, then there's lots of charities there. You've got mind.org.uk, timeschange.org, mental health Samaritan's Calm Zone. And we're back on the 8th of November, and I've got Simon Franklin coming in and Mixter Hoffman. And then just next week, all back to my other talk show. I'm talking to Chris International, so hopefully you can join me for that. But thank you both so much for coming on. A lot of support in the chat, and again, thank you to everyone in the chat for coming along and supporting what's been a difficult conversation. But thank you, Lee, thank you, Matt, for being open and honest with everything that you've gone on. I'm sure it was a big help to people. If you guys hang on there, I'll have a quick chat to you after the show. But thank you, everyone, once again. We'll raid out and go to see Sam. Say hi to him when we get there.
I'll just say,
go ahead.
I'm doing Hump Day 45s with Mr. Lob and
us on Wednesday morning. Yeah,
from 9, I believe. Yeah, I don't know what time it is with Lob. It'll be some crazy time.
That's fine. That'll be on the 45 Games channel.
Yeah, if anyone wants to join in, that'd be great.
No worries. Right. Thank you once again, everyone. We'll end the broadcast, but if you two hop on there, we'll have a quick chat. And see you all next time.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks for all your support, and all the best to all of you.
Thanks. Take care.